The flame of vengeance becomes the brightest when it is slowly nurtured, molded, and kept ignited for a long period of time. Written and directed by Prashant Neel, KGF Chapter 2 follows the journey of its protagonist, Rocky, who not only demands retributive justice, but wants to fulfill the promise he gave to his mother. He had told his mother that one day he would bring her all the gold in this world. He remembered that promise every passing moment of his life. He remembered when his mother had to struggle every day so that he could stay alive. He remembered his early days in the city of dreams, Bombay, where he had to fight for every breath. But now, he was the uncrowned emperor of Kolar Goldfields, aka KGF. In KGF Chapter 1 we saw that Garuda was made the chief of the gold mines by his father, Suryavardhan, who had also told his brother, Adheera, to be a loyal assistant to his son, as he was to him. Inayat Khalil, a smuggler from the UAE, had always wanted to enter Kolar gold fields, and with Suryavardhan on his deathbed, he knew he had a genuine chance. Suryavardhan also knows that if Ramika Sen comes to power, she will invade KGF. Rajendra Desai, Kamal and Andrews had sent Rocky to KGF so that Garuda, Suryavardhan's son, could be killed. They knew it was a task that was next to impossible, but Rocky's confidence had led them to believe that it could be achieved. Garuda was all set to perform a human sacrifice ceremony. There were 3 males who were to be sacrificed. Before the security realized that one of the prisoners who was to be sacrificed had died in his cell and his place was taken by another unknown person, it was too late. Rocky came out of the water like a predator and, with his sword, killed Garuda. He had also killed Virat earlier, who was the younger brother of Gorda. Rocky always wanted to rule Bombay. But the day Andrews promised to give him the city as a gift, if he was able to kill Garuda, there was a seed of greed that was sown inside him. Rocky didn't only want Bombay now. He wanted the whole of India for himself. What happened after Rocky took control of Kolar gold fields? Did Adheera return? And Andingalagi was narrating the story from the book he had written, called El Dorado. Deepa Hegde had told the owner of the news channel, T.S. Nagapurana, that she didn't believe a word that Ingalagi had written in his book. It all seemed like the folklore that was so fascinating that people wanted to believe it to be true. But as he progresses, Deepa realizes that it might not be all a farce. Halfway through the story, Ingalagi's health deteriorates, and in KGF Chapter 2, we see that his son, Vijayendra Ingalagi, takes over the narration. After killing Garuda and taking charge of Kolar Goldfield, Rajakrishnappa Bayarya, aka Rocky, called Andrews, Daya, Rajendra Desai, and Kamal for a meeting. Till that moment, they didn't know who had killed Garuda and who was the new ruler of KGF. They believed that Rocky had been killed by Garuda. They thought that Garuda's younger brother, Virat, had taken over the mantle and may have conspired to kill his brother. They are shocked to see Rocky at the scene. Before coming to meet them, Rocky had taken one more peculiar step. Vanaram, who was the head of Garuda's army, was captured by Rocky, but he never intended to kill him. He knew that Vanaram was a man of honor and could be of great help to him. He gives an offer to Vanaram that if he trained his amateur boys, then he would be reinstated to his original position. Vanaram agreed and took the young boys under his command. In the meeting, Rocky also called for Reena. Kamal had never been fond of Rocky, but he couldn't do much about it earlier. But when he saw Reena being brought to the meeting against her wishes and Rocky declaring that he would take her with him, he lost his calm. But Rocky was in no mood to meddle with the insignificant pieces of the chessboard. He shoots Kamal and makes a symbolic declaration that if the group didn't agree to his terms, then they would also meet a similar fate. The lifestyle of the workers had drastically improved under Rocky's regime. But it seemed like the fate of Kolar Goldfields, its past, present, and future, had been soaked in blood. Adheera was still alive. He had promised his brother that he would never attack Kolar Goldfields until Garuda was in charge. But now, since he was not there, the deadly assassin was not bound by anything. He and his men attacked Outpost 1, which was the entry point to the KGF territory. Adheera believed in Valkyrie ideologies and had raised an army of barbarians. There was somebody who was providing Adheera with the intel and insider details, but Rocky didn't know who. Rocky had figured out that there were not one, but 9 mining sites in KGF. Suryavardan had hidden this fact from everybody, as he wanted to use the resources sustainably. Rajendra Desai, Reena's father, is killed by Andrews so that Rocky would come out of his fortress and Adheera would get a chance to kill him. Rocky falls right into the trap. He is shot by Adheera. But he doesn't kill him. He wanted to set an example. Rocky was respected by his people, and they had put their immense trust in him. Adheera wanted this trust to break. He wanted people to see that Rocky was fallible. With Rocky injured, the people were scared, and the whole system was in a vulnerable state. Rocky recovered, and he had a strategy in mind. He goes to the UAE to meet Inayat Khalil. He made a proposition to Khalil. He proposed that the gold, which used to come from Africa to the UAE, and then to India, be picked by him directly, and that Inayat Khalil would get a hearty share of it. Rocky had killed all his competitors operating on the western coast and didn't leave an option for Khalil to refuse his offer. He wanted complete autonomy over the west coast. He had one more demand, though. Rocky had taken huge sums of money, and in exchange for it, he wanted something from Khalil. Once again, back in Kolar gold fields, the trucks that used to transport the gold are stopped by Adheera, but something happened that even took the barbarian by shock. Rocky, in exchange for the huge amount of money and gold, had taken Kalashnikovs and other deadly ammunitions from Inayat Khalil. He had the firepower, and he initiated an onslaught on Adheera's army. Adheera is forced to leave his. Who was the traitor who plotted against Rocky? Ramika Sen, the newly elected prime minister, was the last hope for all those who were trying to end Rocky's reign and take over Kolar gold fields. The CBI was devising a plan against Rocky, and now they had got a green signal from Ramika Senator. But Rocky was always a step ahead of the government. He goes directly to Delhi and meets Ramika Sen in person. He handed over the file to Ramika, which had all the information about a trust fund that he was running, and also the evidence that had the potential to incriminate him. Ramika was astonished at this move and didn't understand the hidden vendetta. Rocky was bribing each and every minister of Ramika's cabinet through that very fund. Filing a case against Rocky meant that the corruption of her government would also come to light. Ramika was left infuriated. Once again, Rocky had got the better of her. Rocky had the leverage. The scales had once again shifted in his favor. Ramika realized that to go against the Rocky's empire, she had to resort to unusual ways. She decides to aid Adheera, who has been lurking in the shadows, wanting revenge. Andrews contacts Adheera and tells him how to enter Kolar gold fields through one of the mines. Adheera enters the area with his army. A blood moon rose from the abyss and crimsoned the whole area. Adheera's army took Rocky's forces by surprise. He killed Reena, who was pregnant with Rocky's child. A bloody battle happens between Rocky and Adheera. Though Rocky kills Adheera, he realizes one thing. There was an insider who was leaking information to the enemy. There was a leak in his own fortress. Guru Panyan, the minister whom Rocky thought to be on his side, was the traitor. He was the one leaking information to Adheera. Will Rocky return for next chapter? Rocky, smeared in blood, decides to go to Delhi and kill Guru Panyan with his own hands. He enters the parliament and, in front of everybody, kills Guru Panyan. The act gives Ramika Sen substantial evidence to take suo motu cognizance and go after Rocky. She orders the army to wage war against the uncrowned emperor of KGF. The Air Force had destroyed the Kolar gold fields. Rocky had ordered the people to leave the Kolar gold fields and had provided an alternative place for them to take shelter. He left, taking all the gold with him on a cargo ship. He had sent a fax to the Indian, Indonesian, and American forces himself. Ramika Sen didn't understand why he had informed the forces. Had Rocky accepted his defeat? Had he understood that there was no escape? The naval forces start firing, and we see Rocky's ship submerging in the sea, with all the gold. People believe that Rocky's chapter was over. The man, even if for a moment, had all the gold in the world, and had fulfilled the promise that he had given to his mother. The mid-credit scene took us all by surprise. The CIA had been investigating Rocky's case for a very long time. A file is delivered to the high command by the CIA. Rocky was involved in other things too, apart from gold smuggling, and he kept them hidden from everybody. Back in Ingelagi's office, a dust-laden draft catches the attention of a worker. On it was written in bold letters, KGF Chapter 3. And Ingelagi's story was still not finished. The Chapter 2 was not the end and Rajakrishnappa Bhairya, aka Rocky, will strike again. With KGF Chapter 3 on the cards, one thing is clear, Rocky had charted the whole plan intricately. He had a purpose behind calling the naval forces of 3 nations. He wanted them to shoot at his cargo and believe in the fact that his story had ended, and with it, a glorious chapter in the history of Kolar gold mines too. The next chapter will finally reveal what Rocky had in his mind, and will he come back again to regain his empire and once again become the uncrowned king of KGF.